Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about my MCAT and how I studied for my MCAT. So I took it August 11th, so it was about a week ago, and I kind of didn't really film any videos like while I was studying. I was way too stressed, and I was also working while I was studying, so I kind of spent most of my time doing that if I wasn't studying. So I'm just going to tell you guys now how I studied for my MCAT and how much time I gave myself and stuff like that. And any little tips that I have for you guys. I gave myself 10 weeks to study, and I think the amount of time that you give yourself kind of depends on how you study and how many hours in a day you can study, and also your schedule and stuff like that. I knew that I could study quite a few hours during the day, and I planned on studying about 8 hours every single day for those 10 weeks. But I've always been okay at just sitting down and studying for long periods of time. That's how I normally study anyways for finals and stuff, so I knew I would be okay with doing that. But some people like to study a little bit fewer hours, 3 or 4 hours a day. So however much time you give yourself to study before the MCAT, it really depends on what type of a studier you are, and 4 hours of good focused studying is going to be a lot better than 8 hours of unfocused studying and having your phone and all of these distractions around you. A really important thing to remember is that your study schedule, it's more about the quality of your studying than it is about the quantity of your studying. So that being said, I started studying 3 days after my last final, and I knew that I wanted to take it the summer after my junior year, because a lot of the classes that I took my junior year were relevant to the MCAT. And so a lot of the information was still fresh in my mind, and I think that that was super helpful. And that's something that you should also consider when you're scheduling your MCAT and what year you want to take your MCAT. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit weird. I'm kind of sick right now, but yeah, so I'll show you guys the books that I used. There are so many different books, and I definitely recommend looking up reviews and the types of studiers that like certain books. I asked my friend what he used because I know he kind of studies similarly to how I do, and he's more of a visual learner, and he told me that he used exam crackers. So that's what I got. I got these 10th edition MCAT exam crackers books, but I didn't use the Psych and Soch book from there. I used the Princeton review. My friend also told me that he preferred this book, and he thought that this book had a lot more relevant terms than the exam crackers one did. So how I tried to split it up, I tried to split it up before I started studying, and then I realized the schedule that I had planned was probably not gonna go how I wanted it to, because I was also scribing while I was trying to study. So I originally planned on doing 5 weeks of content review and then 5 weeks of practice. I think I ended up doing more 6 to 7 weeks of content review and then 3 weeks of practice. Another thing that I supplemented my studying with was Khan Academy videos. Those are super useful, and I definitely recommend you guys take advantage of the free videos that they have. They're amazing. I would just type in the subject and then Khan Academy after it on Google, and I'd find the exact video that I needed. I definitely did this a lot for the physics and the gen chem, and also even the biological systems and biochemistry. Pretty much every topic I did this for. They even have Psych and Soch videos. It's amazing. Khan Academy is going to be your best friend. They also have a lot of practice problems on there, so I definitely recommend you check it out. Another YouTube channel that I really liked was AK Lectures. I know I used him a lot for biochemistry when I was taking the class, so I definitely looked up those videos again and watched them, and I thought that they were super helpful. So everybody has different ways that they like to study. Some people like to highlight in the books and then go over it. Other people like to do flashcards. But the way I've been studying for all of college is that I make these little note sheets. So this is what they look like, and I made it for physics. I have one for biology too, so all of the body systems. I also have one for gen chem and OChem, and then I have one for biochemistry. So the Gen Chem and OChem one is 30 pages of me having written notes, which is ridiculous, but that's how I like to study, and I knew that that's how it would work best for me. And I basically write like all of the important topics, and then like all of the important topics as headings, and then I write like little notes underneath it. And I also like to color coordinate it just to make it a little bit more organized, because these notes end up being like ridiculously long and just have a lot of information on them. So I think the color coordinating helps me out a lot. So that's what I did while I was reading. I would also make these notes. I would read like a paragraph and then make these little like summary notes on them. And this is what I reviewed for the last 5 weeks. I didn't really go through the books anymore unless it was like a topic that I didn't really like cover enough in my notes, and then I'd go back in the books. But basically I would just use like these notes for the last 5 weeks of like reviewing and stuff. Another really cool thing is that Kaplan has these MCAT quick sheets, which are very similar to my notes. They just have like they have like formulas for physics and then like a little bit of a description for it. They also have like a biochemistry section, an OChem one, physics and math, and then they had behavioral sciences, biology, and Gen Chem. I got these from my friend who I was talking about before, so I don't actually know like where you can find these or if these cost money or anything, but if you guys know, leave a comment down below. They're probably online. I'm sure you have to pay for them, but they're also really helpful if you just want to like review things very quickly. I think it's good to kind of like cross-check between books. So like this is Kaplan. I used exam crackers, and so whatever wasn't in exam crackers I found in here, and I was like, oh, that's something that like exam crackers didn't cover, and that maybe is going to show up on the MCAT, because a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be on the MCAT, and sometimes like these books aren't going to cover it all. And I think that's where practice helps a lot, because you're going to see those problems in your practice problems, and then you're like, oh, my book didn't cover this, but you know, it's in this practice problem, so it could show up, and then it kind of like helps you prepare for every type of question. Another thing that I did was I had these 1001 questions from exam crackers. This was the 2003 version, so it's a little bit old, but I think it was still really helpful. So I had the physics one, and then the Gen Chem one, and also OChem, because those were the subjects that I was kind of struggling with the most. I definitely needed the most improvement on those subjects, because like biology was always something that I really enjoyed and that I was passionate about, but Gen Chem, OChem, and physics were kind of like the more difficult subjects for me. I did a lot of these practice. I actually did quite a bit of practice. I did like every other question in these packets, and there's like 500 questions in these packets, so I did do quite a bit of these. And then for Psych and Soc, what I did was I made flashcards. I made flashcards for like every topic and like every different like social structure and all of that, and I think that that was really helpful. Flashcards were super helpful for me for psychology. I didn't really want to go through like a whole packet of notes for that. Like if there's a lot of vocab, I usually end up doing flashcards, because they're just kind of funner to like flip through instead of just like staring at this page, and also they're a little bit easier to test you on. The Princeton Review books, I know a lot of people like this Princeton Review book, so I definitely recommend you guys check it out. I think people say that there's like a lot more information in this book. It also has like an appendix section. I personally think it should be inside the book and not like just an appendix section. It should be its own like chapter, because it's on like standard deviation, on probabilities, like validity, reliability, and all of that stuff. And a large part of the MCAT is reading passages and reading like experiments, and then looking at data and then answering questions based off of that information. So you definitely need to learn how to like read graphs, how to understand data. I think that section is super helpful in this book. Another thing that my friend told me very last minute was about the AAMC section banks, which I wish I had known about them like 3 weeks before my MCAT. I think it would have been amazing. AAMC has section banks for the Chem and Physics section, for the Biology section, and also for the Psych and Soc section. I did it for the Chem and Physics portion and for the Psych and Soc portion. And this section bank is super difficult. it's mostly compiled of like the hard questions that you're gonna see on the MCAT. So you might get really disappointed by the end of them. You get like a percentile score, and I honestly, like, I'd always get like 67 or 66%, and it made me super discouraged. But if you go through them, and if you go through them well, like all of the questions that you got wrong, then it's going to be super beneficial for you. And I definitely recommend looking at the Psych and Soc section, because I'd say that a lot of these prep books kind of don't really know what to expect about the Psych and Soc section, because it is the newer section in the MCAT. The older MCAT didn't have this section, so there was a lot of information on that AAMC section bank that I never saw in this book. So I definitely recommend you do that section bank. I think this video is going to be like super long, but another really important thing is to take practice tests and to take timed practice tests. So you want to do like the full 7 hours, you want to take your breaks, and you want to kind of mimic how the actual test is going to be. Because I don't know if a lot of people realize this. I didn't realize this until my first practice test, but sitting down and focusing for 7 hours is so difficult. It's awful. Like, once you reach that last section, you're so dead that you just want to like fly through it and not really focus on it. So you definitely need to practice the endurance, and practice just sitting there and staring at a screen for that long, because it's gonna be pretty rough. So I ended up taking about I ended up taking 4 practice tests, and I kind of only took like the free practice tests and then the two AAMC practice tests, because I know a lot of people say that those are the most accurate in regards to how you're going to do on the actual test. The first test that I took was a Princeton review, and I didn't take like a diagnostic test. I just took a test after my 5 weeks of content review, because I figured like I was going to need to study everything anyways. Like, I kind of already knew like what I needed to focus on, and I didn't want to waste like a day taking that like practice test and just feeling really bad about myself after it. So I took my first test after my 5 weeks of content review. The next one that I took was a next step exam. Yeah, I think it was a next step exam, and it was a free one. And then the third one I took was AAMC Practice 1, and the fourth one I took was AAMC Practice 2. Oh yeah, that's kind of what I did. I think I'm going to make like a separate video on like getting discouraged while studying and stuff, and how to like overcome that, because I definitely did get discouraged quite a few times. And that last week right before the MCAT, that was a rough week. So I think I'm going to do a separate video on that. But yeah, so I'm waiting for my MCAT scores. They come back on September 12th, I think. I think the wait is like the worst part. That's how I ended up preparing for the MCAT. Hopefully it paid off. We will see. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye guys.